going to watch Shadow versus Mono Black combo. So let's down here our feature match area because Cris here on the right on Mono Black control. This is back-to-back top 8s for Cris here, Devin. Big weekend for Cris. One of the players who is trying to get one of those at-large, if not right out wins with the showdown, and a part of Team Swish, which we saw Steven Dykman and Cris be a part of. And Cris been having, some good success playing unusual and unorthodox decks over the last couple of days.
Yeah, you mentioned the points race. Definitely every single point matters when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, we see a lot of players, like you mentioned, Connor Mullally last season, Piper Powell seasons past. Just a lot of points up for grabs, and it's very, very important for these players to nab every single point that they can get their hands on. And yeah, we saw Cris do it yesterday with the kind of the innovative take on the Yawgmoth deck list that had that featured some new cards like Orcish Bowmasters and Samwise Gamgee, and showing up with kind of an unorthodox one here today in Mono Black combo.
Yeah. Chat is having a lot of questions, Devin, about Chris's combo. Why is it called a combo? Can you tell them what we're looking to do as Chris's deck?
I would love to. So Cris features 4 copies of Leyline of the Void main deck. You might be familiar with that card. The card you might not be familiar with, the combo with it is Helm of Obedience, which is, I'm going to get the exact wording on this. Let me go ahead and pull it up for chat in just a second. There it is on your screen. So the Oracle text here is X tap, target opponent mills a card, then repeats this process until a creature card or X cards have been put into their graveyard this way, whichever comes first. If one or more creature cards were put into the graveyard this way, sacrifice the Helm, put that once the battlefield, X can't be 0. The joke is that with Leyline of the Void, no cards ever hit the graveyard. So for Helm of Obedience, with a Leyline in play, you spend 1 mana to activate the Helm. Your opponent's entire deck goes into exile. And importantly, this actually beats, there are some common sideboard cards, we see this in Modern all the time, like against mill decks, you board an Eldrazi. This line actually beats the Eldrazi because all the cards get exiled.
Yeah, incredibly powerful. And like you mentioned, having main deck Dauthi Voidwalker and Leyline of the Void, really good. If Roger Suleiman had been on the other side of the bracket, he would have been dreading playing against Cris here, as we probably think Katra is as well, as Faye have a artifact-heavy deck, and Cris is main decking 4 Karn the Great Creators, which gives more access to our Helms and a huge advantage against any artifact deck. So this deck randomly just kind of colds, a third of the format with all its main deck hate cards.
Yeah, and funny enough, out of all of the decks in our top 8, this is probably the one that Cris wanted to see the least. The combination of Fast Clock plus discard spells plus Force of Will is the exact recipe that Cris does not want to play against.
100%. We'll have to see how this one goes. So is it fair to assume that you're on team Dustin when it comes to who's advantaged?
I mean, personally speaking, I like Chris's deck more. I think it's a really cool, innovative deck and potentially innovative on the archetype. But I do think that I like Dustin's position in the matchup. Now, that being said, Cris being our 4 seed, Dustin being our 8 seed, Cris is going to get to be in the play. Does have a lot of potential fast mana plays that we are able to set up. And Leyline of the Void, notably, take a look at Dustin's deck list. There are copies of Murktide Regent, so Leyline of the Void, very good at stopping that card from being put onto the stack.
Very good point. I keep seeing his chat say Jameer Shadow, and I realized that the D is cut off for them, and yeah. I can see it. And I was like, why are they like? Is this some like it's a Jover now? As we do see a Swamp into Chrome Mox pitching Aghanime's Awakening.
Yeah, we're apparently coming full circle on the Joel memes. As yep, so with Chrome Mox, pitch Aghanime's Awakening, and we're just passing. Interesting. So we're going to go ahead and throw out the Chrome Box out there. I mean, decklist are open, knows that Dustin doesn't have anything like an Abrupt Decay or a way to blow up the Chrome Box. So free to just jam that. Likely, maybe wants to get that onto the battlefield through the presence of a Thoughtseize.
True. So do you see, well, it looks like we're pulling out the pen and paper again, ready to go.
One thing that, I mean, there's only 1 copy in Dustin's deck list, but one thing to note is Dustin has 4 copies of Thoughtseize and 1 spicy copy of Reanimate. So if Cris were to maybe have a Sheoldred or something like that in his hand, and that gets Thoughtseized, we can potentially reanimate that from Dustin's side.
True, as we do see Thoughtseize get cast here against Cris, as Cris is going to show Karn the Creator, Orcish Bowmaster, and Ancient Tomb. Looks like Cris is saying, hey, if you want to take my Bowmaster, you can.
Yeah, because if Dustin takes the Bowmaster, then Cris can potentially go for Karn. Open deck list there, we do know, both players know about the presence of Daze in Dustin's deck list, so that's also a consideration where maybe if Dustin takes the Karn, maybe on Chris's side, you just don't even fire off the Bowmaster and wait till you can pay for Daze.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot too, where it's unclear to me if you want to get the ping and the damage in this turn, right? To turn on the shadows sooner. Probably very likely to happen, but not a guarantee.
Yep, we are going to go for the Bowmaster. Going to go ahead and put Dustin down to 15. Very good thing to point out. Watery Grave, something that you see a lot in Modern, not something you typically see in Legacy, however. But because Dustin is sporting copies of Death Shadow, the mana base split is 3 Watery Grave, 2 Underground Sea. So keep that in mind.
Yep. So we're going to see an attack here for 2. So now Death Shadow's online. They're 1/1s.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. If the Bowmaster weren't cast that turn, Dustin would be unable to deploy a Death Shadow if there wasn't maybe a fetch land or the Thoughtseize. And with Dustin's second land being Underground Sea, that actually could be extremely relevant, although it doesn't have the Death Shadow here, it appears.
So you see Orcish Bowmaster going in, and that's a Brazen Borrower unsummoning the amassed army.
Yeah, good way to take care of the first token. Now, Bowmasters will be able to get to go to work if Dustin has something like a Ponder or a Brainstorm. Will be able to go ahead and get another token. So, I mean, ideally, you don't want to fire off a Brainstorm into Bowmasters, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
100%. As we do see Ponder, going to get us a little army. I see Cris sit up. Cris is like, I'm ready.
Token is on the way. Already got the die as well. Yeah, I mean, there's the funny enough, there's the Reanimate in Dustin's hand, although no good targets now, so likely just going to go ahead and shuffle.
Ooh, Dustin taking the shuffle in the hopes of Cris missing the trigger, clearly.
I mean, the token's in Chris's hand. Come on, he's not going to miss it.
I know you might be thinking about Sheoldred right now. You might be thinking, if I draw Sheoldred, would be a pretty good draw for mana.
Dude, Sheoldred plus Orcish Bowmasters. How does your opponent ever get out of that? That's just like, that's a hard lock.
That is get bolted every turn, basically.
Yeah. We even put the Bowmasters before the card was put into Dustin's hand. Just to make sure we didn't miss it.
A fetch land here. Dustin down to 10, I believe. Got some big old shadows coming up.
Good 8. No, I'm going to stay at 10. Just going to get a C. I mean, even shadows being 3/3s, they the shadows would still check the Bowmaster. Potentially wants to deploy something. I was going to say a Baleful Strix, although you would make the Bowmaster token a little bit bigger, take another point of damage. But 2 mana looks like that is what's going to be deployed here. Oh, never mind.
I'm orking your bow as we shoot down the Orcish Bowmaster.
All right, Bowmaster taking care of Bowmaster. And then we have a 1/1 to block Chris's 1/1. So Bowmaster advantage fully in Dustin's court.
Yeah. And it's real.
Yeah, Cris definitely looking for... All right, going to go ahead and go City of Traders Pass. Cris definitely looking for one of the 4 mana haymakers here, like a Karn or the best card in Chris's deck, Sheoldred.
Yep. Sheoldred will be very strong here. As we do see Ponder get cast, Cris does not have a Bowmaster response, which would have been actually huge.
Yeah, would have been able to get a counter on the token, kill Dustin's Bowmaster, and we're bowing all over the place here. This is just Bowmaster mirrors back and forth.
Yeah, and we're seeing Bowmaster, really show up. This was a card players were very excited about, and it made a big presence in our top 8. I think about 12 copies, which is a good strong first showing.
Yeah, because the Golgari non-elves deck also has, I believe, 3 copies. So yeah, I think Cris has 4. Looks like Cris has 4. Dustin has 4, or maybe Cris has 3. Let me just take a look at Chris's list. Cris has 2, actually, excuse me, but 2 more in the sideboard. So technically 4 in the 75. Dustin has 4, and then our elves or elves, I keeps calling it elves. Elves player has 3 copies as well.
All right. Nice. So if you set the line at 12, it was under, but in the letter of the law way. As we get an island here.
Unless the breakfast deck had copies. No copies in the breakfast deck. So yeah, it looks like 11.
All right.
All right. Fetching a basic island here for Dustin. We got 2 mana. And what are we going to go for? Oh, boy.
But shoot your token down. My army's amassed and slamming for 3. Cris down to 17. This is... not the it's very real. And Cris is very lucky there's no cantrips. Imagine if Cris was playing a deck with Ponder or Brainstorm. It would be very hard to get you out of this, as we do see a hard cast Grief here.
Yeah, Grief going to be able to check the Bowmasters. If Cris wants to, you would have to go ahead and trade for the 2/2 mass token. Likely does not want to do that. There's a Wasteland left over here for Dustin. Really wants to find some kind of cantrip like a Brainstorm. Also, the Brazen Borrower is over there as well. So you can go attack for 2, put Cris to 15, cast the Borrower, and then Borrower plus a mass token is a 3-turn clock.
Yeah, great point there.
All right, Bowmaster token getting into the red zone. We'll see if you want to fire off the Wasteland. Not going to. Going to go ahead and save that. Cris does have access to quite a bit of mana, so not the most relevant thing. And have to see what Cris picks up here. The race is on. Although Dustin is at 8, so this race does favor Cris.
It really does. And Cris, it's so awkward too because definitely needs to attack. This is the right play. But any moment Dustin draws Death Shadow, it's just like, oh no. So an awkward moment, but I respect the discipline to do it here. As we do see Dark Ritual cast. Interesting moment here.
Huh.
Yeah, we must be using a lot of mana as we're tapping City of Traders and casting Agadeem's Awakening.
So we wanted to basically use the Dark Ritual to Awakening instead of taking damage off the Ancient Tomb, which does kind of make sense. And the bow is going to go. We're going to be throwing some bows at the other bows. Bozos. Bad one. Here. We'll work on. Yeah, we'll work on that.
No, I thought that was good. You gotta chuckle out of me.
All right, I do Brazen Borrower. Good.
No, I was just gonna say I do wonder like how much does this like going to matter? Because Dustin is so close to death and his hand's so bad, right? Like the cantrips are going to come up a lot. There's Death Shadow.
All right.
Brazen Borrower attack for 3.
Death Shadow definitely a start here for Dustin. Although Cris does have this is going to get weird because Cris does have quite a few blockers. Grief should be untapped. There you go. Cris does have, a couple of chump blockers for the Death Shadow. Right now it is, I'm bad at math, it is an 8/8. So can theoretically take 11, I guess, but doesn't really want to do that. Yeah, you kind of have to start chumping it now. So you can chump with the token. And yeah, I think Chris's best draw step from this position is I was going to say a Karn, but now with the Wasteland, Karn, I guess we can still have enough mana to cast Karn.
Yeah, I was going to see the Shadow attack. Probably an easy chump here from the amassed Orc army. Take 3 from the Brazen, down 9.
A little interesting to fire off the Ancient Tomb. Ooh, that's an opposition agent. That might change the tide a little bit. So now we have a 2/2 and a 1/1. The 2/2 can trade for the opposition agent. Bowmasters can trade and put Dustin to 2. But if you attack with everything, you're dead on the crackback. So you can't afford to do that. This is going to be an interesting couple of turns here to see how this plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree too, by the way, with the Wasteland. I wonder if it was supposed to hit the city.
Yeah, because if you hit the city and Cris draws a Karn, then you force Cris to take 2 more damage to be able to cast the Karn. I was thinking about something like that. We're going to get in with the 2/3 power creatures. This is a forced block here from Dustin. Very likely just going to trade the 2/2 token for the opposition agent and vault to 2. There's no way for Dustin to be able to block both with the Grief having Menace.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah. Well, there's the Orcish Bowmaster. We could have 2-for-1'd ourselves, but I think this is better.
I guess trade for the Grief, and then you still take 3 either way, but you get the Grief off the battlefield. But then the opposition agent is maybe easier to chump block down the road.
Yeah, it's really close. We see Wasteland here going to go after the city.
Ooh. Actually, kind of a huge draw step, yeah, because now that cuts off of Cris of casting Karn, and that was one of Chris's better top decks.
And unironically, I hate to say it, Sheoldred.
Yeah, I mean, with Dustin at 2, Sheoldred would have been lethal.
Yeah. As we're going to see opposition agent here before the mana goes away. And Brazen Borrower is probably going to attack no matter what. It can only block creatures with flying. So.
Actually, this is lethal. Yeah, Cris. Yeah, it doesn't have anything. Yeah, wow, crazy.
Yeah, Cris doesn't have nothing else. That's going to awesome. Let's pull up Dustin's sideboard and see what he has here. Dustin in his sideboard has 2 Dauthi Voidwalker, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Brazen Borrower, a Dress Down, a Force Negation, a Hydroblast, a Hymn to Tourach, a Null Rod, a Plague Engineer, a Powder Keg, and a Sheoldred's Edict. What do you like here, Devin?
Okay, so there's not a ton here from Dustin's side of things. The Null Rod is pretty good. It's able to shut off Chrome Box and Helm of Obedience, so I think you're going to go towards that one. Force of Negation, another good one at being able to answer Karn the Great Creator and stuff like that. Sheoldred's Edict, you maybe could go towards to be able to kill a Karn after it gets an activation. Hymn to Tourach, pretty good one at just being able to kind of lower Chris's total resource count. You could, I mean, Surgical Extraction is kind of a meme at this point. I don't really know if you're supposed to bring it in, but in combination with Thoughtseize, like if you're able to take a copy of Chris's Karn or Chris's Helm of Obedience and then Surgical all those away, that could be potentially good. And then maybe Brazen Borrower as well, a pretty good one against Leyline of the Void.
I love that. Let's check out what Cris here has. From our sideboard, we have some Bowmasters, Plague Engineer, and then we have Karn tutor targets. Just gonna save everyone some time.
Yeah. Instead of listing them all off for 10 hours. No, I gotcha. Chris's side of things wants to probably go towards the Bowmasters, specifically to fight over Dustin's Bowmasters. This is kind of just like, you want to bring in Ragavan to block their Ragavan kind of deal. So I think I like that. And I don't think we want to go towards Plague Engineer just for Bowmaster, given that we have 4 copies of our own, and that's probably enough. But yeah, past the Bowmasters, everything else is a Karn target. So I think just those, and we'll call it a day.
I like it. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be bringing in any, anything else. I mean, we could bring in the Microsoft lettuce, better known as Microsynth lettuce, and play it with our Karn, lock them out.
We've already discussed this, Mason. I don't like lettuce.
Yeah, that's true. Neither do I. In my Magic games, I actually had a great salad before we started doing this commentary today. I will say this, though. I'm noticing a type when it comes to Cris. Cris likes creature combo decks where you've got to get real scrappy about 50% of the time. That's what I'm noticing.
Is Sheoldred considered scrappy? I think Sheoldred just wins the game on the spot.
Yeah, if your deck is like not super strong, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you know what? Probably true. But yeah, let's go back down to our players and see. Oh, it looks like they are. One is shuffling up while still just taking a little look-see poo of the sideboard. Just, reading the deck, double-checking. And this is something that we talked about before, Devin, that I do think is important for players who are qualifying for their first RC or maybe your second one even. Open deck list, not something players are used to playing in, and it matters a lot. You want to take that time and think about what they have. You have all the information on what they could be playing around and what they could be playing towards, and that really matters. It informs your decisions a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Magic Online is for all the crap we give it. It's just a different experience. There's really nothing that can compare to playing in paper with open deck lists. So yeah, it's a very, very different experience. That it's something that you kind of have to get a lot of practice in. And these players, if they go to the RC, it's pretty good practice for them. As far as the matchup is concerned, so that game was particularly, I kind of thought that Dustin was favored, given the presence of, like we said, Thoughtseizes and Force of Wills, but we only saw one Thoughtseize cast that game and no Force of Wills on any of Chris's cards. Everything just resolved. So, I still kind of like Dustin in the matchup, but we'll have to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I think theoretically it makes sense that Dustin is favored in like a lot of the 1, 2, 3 best draw games. But I think when things get scrappy, Cris is a little bit favored as long as he has Bowmaster, because a lot of Dustin's deck is not about card advantage. It's about card selection and finding the right thing. So having Bowmaster to punish that, I think, is a very real part of the game. And Chris's deck sort of worse in that mid-game spot there. But if Bowmaster's in play, significantly better, because now Brainstorm, Ponder, etc. are actually costing you and amassing an army.
Right. And, we get into these, and we talked about it kind of during sideboarding, the Bowmaster Wars. Notably, there are some other stuff in Dustin's deck that Bowmaster can answer, like the Baleful Strix, like the Brazen Borrower. So, and I think that, you bring up a good point where Chris's Bowmasters are kind of a lot better than Dustin's, because Dustin has those Brainstorms and those Ponders, really wants to, cycle through his deck. And Cris doesn't really have that kind of stuff. He's just kind of just drawing one card a turn isn't really ever going to turn on the Bowmaster outside of the ETB trigger itself.
Yep. So seeing Cris here, think about his keep. big event for Cris here. Like we talked about, Cris is going to all our events this year, recently moved to Mundelein, home of NRG, and where this event is happening. And, he is playing all of them and wants to make the Players' Championship. It's a goal of his, and the rest of Swish Gaming as well, to try and get all their players in to that event. And getting a finals, even appearance here, is huge points, and a win is a crazy amount of points. And after this weekend, might put Cris in our number one spot. Sarah Shearing, our number one player who isn't qualified right now, had a little bit of a medium weekend, didn't pick up that many points, and Cris is now going to catapult to the front. And you really want to be in the front of the pack as the events start winding down, and so you can maybe skip one if real life something comes up, or try and catch that Player of the Year race, as Cris Smith, I'm sure, would love to have free entry to all our events next year.
You're right. I mean, I would like free entry to all events too. That sounds like a pretty good time.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
What about
I get
maybe
free entry to
free Sheoldreds?
Ooh, that's actually really good. Those are expensive. Less expensive than the One Ring, as we see Leyline the Void as a pregame action here. Yeah.
Oh man, awesome. That's not Gemstone Caverns, Cris.
That was really funny. That's just a long day of playing Magic. Cris did an interview yesterday with me and Julian, and stayed up till 2 a.m. on Friday night, or technically into Saturday morning, if we're going to get into specifics, learning the new Samwise Gamgee Cauldron Familiar combo with Yawgmoth, which we saw Cris top 8 yesterday's 10K with. And that deck, I think it drained Cris. I think it put Cris into a long position, and it's all because Cris didn't want to play Blood Artist.
Yeah, I know.
It's actually...
we know about the Takenuma. It's actually funny you mentioned that, because I was actually talking with Cris a little bit before the event, and he had messaged me his list on Twitter. We're kind of going back and forth and trying to discuss on like what the last couple of slots are, and he sent me the combo list of how to combo without the Blood Artist, and it was like at least 3 pages long. Yeah.
Do you know what, Cris? Here's my advice to you: when you go back and watch this, just put Blood Artist in your deck.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to draw Blood Artist, but I'm going to put these 3 other cards in my deck.
It's basically when you try to convince yourself that putting Dryad Arbor into your deck that doesn't have Green Sun Zenith is a good idea. You're like, well, I have to draw the Dryad Arbor some of the time, but the other 60% of the time it's pretty good. It's kind of the same thing with Blood Artist.
Yep. And Orcish Bowmaster here is the takeoff Thoughtseize. And like I talked about earlier there, Devin, I think, the Orcish Bowmaster is a big part of Cris actually staying in this game and actually out card qualitating Dustin, because Dustin's card selection will mean he's going to have less awkward draws, while Cris will have some, sort of the mercy at the top of the deck, and Bowmaster's a way to mitigate that, but not anymore, as Takenuma is the land. Cris was excited to play it before, but a little hesitant this turn. He picked up a different land.
Yeah, it was actually. I was wondering on the Thoughtseize if I wanted to just kind of take the land that I forget the name, Agadeem's Awakening, but looks like that was not the case here. We're going to go ahead and deploy the Chrome Box here, and we're going to main phase the Chrome Box, not necessarily meaning that Cris wants to deploy a spell here. Maybe picked up a second copy of Bowmaster.
Yeah, maybe. Also, Dustin's copy of Null Rod looking really strong, not against only Chris's combo, but this land.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So Dustin able to go ahead and deploy this Null Rod. That's going to go ahead and shut off the Chrome Box, really set Cris back, especially if there's because I remember, I'm pretty sure when we saw the hand, there wasn't a second land. So if that Agadeem's Awakening was pitched and there's no second land for Cris, that's going to be pretty backbreaking.
Indeed. As we're going to get a Watery Grave and Shock here. If you're newer to Legacy, this is a thing that's intentional in Dustin's deck. It's not just a budget build, but we have seen players do very well in the past with that. No, we just have Death Shadow in our deck, so we want to fetch Shock to actually grow the shadow. So we have a couple Watery Graves just to make that happen as we play Null Rod here on 2.
See if we have a response here from Cris. Maybe has a Bowmaster. Nope, just going to put up the Chrome Box there to make sure we don't tap it. Good idea there from Cris, and that is effectively a Stone Rain, baby. We've seen a lot of Stone Rains in this top 8, Mason. Pretty good fun.
We have. It's a good time. I will say Null Rod's abilities cannot be activated, though, so be careful of that.
Yeah, we got to bring up a good point. I don't really know how you would give abilities to a Null Rod, but in case that does come up, you never know. Oh, well, we got Stone Rain, but we actually just made 2 more mana, so here we go.
And Grief. All right, let's see if we have a Daze. As a Force of Will, pitching Dress Down. Gonna knock Dustin down to 11. Might actually grow a shadow, crucially.
Dress down should be exiled. Maybe we can get the judge to just grab that real quick.
That's the exile pod.
Oh, because the ley line. Right. I forgot about the ley line. My bad. You're right.
You're all good. No worries. It is a weird one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I've had some people where playing against Leyline, they kind of just like, they're like, okay, the Leyline's there. I'm just going to put my graveyard in kind of the same place because we all know that it's there from the Leyline. But yeah, it's, I forgot about the Leyline. My bad.
No, you're all good. It happens to the best of us. Do you know what Hannah Montana says to that, Devin?
No, but you're going to tell me.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days.
There you go. Are you sure we don't get like DMCA'd when we like say a Hannah Montana lyric?
No, I actually took karate with her unironically as a kid. We're cool. I karate chopped Hannah Montana.
All right.
That's a true story. That I know that sounds like I'm making something. It's not. I took karate with Hannah Montana.
Hey, anything you know, you're like Twitch chat. You would never lie to me, so
I wouldn't. It'd be cringe. So do you see a passing of the turn? Ponder didn't find a land. Good news, bad news for Cris.
Chat's calling Cap. We might have to get you to show the receipts at some point.
Yeah, sorry. Miley Cyrus, the actress who is Hannah Montana. Okay, sorry, chat. We see Death Shadow get played.
Second Shadow. Oh, okay. Pretty good setup here for Dustin. Able to kind of get the pressure going. Let's see if Cris has one of the 4 mana payoffs. That's a land and a pass.
Yep. And these 2 Death Shadows are going to be very big very quickly, as we are going to see Ponder get cast. And this is what we talked about, right? If Orcish Bowmaster had been in Chris's hand or on the battlefield, Dustin would, be a little bit lower, which would be nice with the Shadows, but there'd be an amassed army that could have, started applying pressure, and maybe Cris could have stole a win. But now we're attacking in for 4, I believe. I'm going to start whittling away Chris's life total.
Yeah, Force of Will, also a combo with Death Shadow. Ooh, there's some mana.
Oh, Sheoldred gets
we had the Force anyways.
Dang, and the Force actually growing our Death Shadows.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's what is that? It's not giant growth.
We call that good deck building.
Yeah.
Quite a 3-turn clock here from Dustin, but pretty close with the Ancient Tomb. Although I guess Cris doesn't have to tap that. City of Traders. And that should be lethal. Cris go to 9. That's 1 short, I think.
No, Dustin should have shot himself and it would have been lethal.
Oh, very good point. 4, 8, 9. Yeah, you're right. Well, yeah, no, it would have been 10 damage. You're right.
Yeah. Bam.
Big draw. All right. There's a City of Traders. We're going to game 3.
That's exciting here. Yeah, these have been some really good games here back and forth. This game, much more kind of how you thought things were going to go, right? Sort of have interaction, have some card selection, get a threat down, sort of ride to victory, Force of Will some of your big clunky cards, and make it get the mercy of your top decks. And played out kind of like you said there.
Yeah, like we saw game 1, like you mentioned, the scrappy type of game where there's like some Bowmasters and some opposition agents involved. In those types of games, I kind of agree with you. I think maybe Cris is a little bit better, especially if Dustin can't kind of get a threat early into play. But yeah, that game was all about Thoughtseize, play a couple of Shadows, Force of Will your big cards, you're dead.
100%. Let's take a look at our events coming in the future. These players aren't sideboarding. I've seen them shuffling. So really quick, if you're having fun watching this at home, make sure to click the follow button. That way you don't miss this or any future events coming up. But we also have some events you might want to come to. If you're in the St. Louis area, July 8th through the 9th, we have a team showdown. That's Pioneer Modern Legacy. Come out, play with your friends. If you win the showdown, you get a bunch of prize money. You get Inkling custom tokens that we give at events, and you get invited to our Players Championship $25,000 prize pool. Incredible value. You should definitely come out to that event in just 2 short weeks. And then Sunday, we have the 5K Legacy trial at that same event. And then in Detroit, a month later, we're going to be having August 12th to the 13th, a modern 10K showdown. The winner of that will go to our championship. And then Sunday, 5K Pioneer trial. Then in Indianapolis on October 14th to the 15th, we have a Pioneer 10K showdown and a Sunday team trial. Once again, modern Legacy Pioneer. Get your friends together, have some fun. Team tournaments, some of the best in the business. We can't wait to see you all out at those events as these players are finishing up their shuffling here. Devin, game 3, Are you sticking with Dustin or are you going with Cris?
I think I'm going to stick with Dustin. I mean, Cris does get to be in the play once again here. It really all kind of depends whether or not Dustin has like the cheap or free interaction, I should say, with Daze and Force of Will. I do still think I like Dustin's side of things overall in the matchup, though.
Mm-hmm. As I think so too. But I'm going to go with Cris because I think so. This is another moment where Katra on the 8-cast deck is really hoping Cris loses because the all 1-mana spell deck against Chalice of the Void, not very good. The Karn deck against your all artifact deck, not very good. So you're kind of hoping that one. And I would like, I think, to see a little Golgari versus Mono Black combo in the final. I think that'd be kind of cool. So I'm going to root for Cris with that. His nonverbal is not very good, though. Very crunched up there.
All right, we got no ley line. That is in Urborg, I believe. And you could Thoughtseize me. I Thoughtseize you back. Let's see what Dustin is working with. I saw a Force Negation, but you probably don't want to fire that one off.
Yeah, it looks like Ponder, Dress Down, Thoughtseize, Murktide, 2 lands, Force Negation. One of the lands is a Wasteland.
You sure that's not 2 deltas? Maybe you're right.
Sure.
No, I think you're right. They do look very similar from afar here, but no, I think you're right. I think it is Wasteland Delta. Yeah, it really kind of depends what is in Chris's hand here. My inclination, I mean, likely want to take... It's weird because the Thoughtseize trades for your best threat, but the Force of Negation also trades for your best threat. The difference is that Force of Negation has to... you have to use another resource to be able to force. So maybe if you have a good card in your hand, you might just want to take the Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's always tough. Thoughtseize is often a pretty strong play. Also, puts Dustin in a spot where Dustin either fires off the Ponder with not as much information or passes the turn back unless their card gets drawn. Looks like Force of Negation is the take. Cris thinks his hand is strong enough to fight through the Thoughtseize. It's going to be interesting to see what that is here, as I imagine Dustin will be leading on that.
Yeah, I wonder if the decision there for Cris is if you have two cards that you want to resolve in your hand. Oh,
wait, did we have Dark Ritual and then Opposition Agent? Because then we're going to turn off the mana from Dustin. If Dustin goes to fetch, it's over.
Oh, no. Oh, Dustin.
And what's the best way to get your opponent to fetch? And here it comes, Cris Smith with the Dark Ritual into Opposition Agent. Dustin will search his deck, and Cris will get the card, but he ripped Force of Will off the top. That is going to save him. Oh, my goodness. Cris Smith masterfully set that up there, took a good amount of time, said it was worth it, and then now, oh my goodness, Thoughtseize with Cris just having one card left in hand. That was the absolute best draw from Dustin there. Any other card would not have done it. Daze couldn't do anything. Oh my goodness, Devin.
That was insane. Well, yeah, we were kind of
over for Cris.
Yeah, we weren't, I mean, Chris's hand was basically perfect given that Dustin didn't have the Force Will in his hand, and now Cris has 2 mana and Stone Cold nothing. Actually, 1 mana after we get Wastelanded. So, yeah, this went from Dustin can't possibly win to Dustin can't possibly lose.
Yeah, and Cris drew the Ancient Tomb. So if we Wasteland this, it's going to be awkward, but we would have had Karn next turn too. Oh my goodness. Chris's almost nut draw just did not work out there. I wonder if Cris should just main phase the Opposition Agent just to play around that Force of Will. That one's going to haunt him for the rest of his days, as Ponder is the play.
I mean, I guess the theory is you want Dustin to commit the fetch land, because if you main phase the Opposition Agent, Dustin doesn't commit the fetch land. But at the end of the day, okay, let's imagine under the assumption that Dustin's top deck is exactly Force of Will and you main phase the Opposition Agent. What is Dustin's hand? He's not doing anything. I guess you get Wastelanded, but you're still not playing Magic until there's an Underground Sea or a Watery Grave specifically drawn. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that the main phase might have been a more heads up play.
Yeah, and I was starting to say it there too, and it looked like he was going to wait. Yeah, it's curious. The game isn't over yet because we do have Ancient Tomb in hand, so we're going to be able to play a lot of cards off the top. We have things like more Opposition Agents that we can draw. We might end up main phasing if we do find Ancient Tomb in a pass of the turn. If there's another land in Chris's hand, it looks like Thoughtseize is the thing, and Leyline the Void. Ooh, part of the combo down.
Yeah, that one's pretty good in your opening hand. Not the best on turn 4 when you only have access to 3 mana. Going to go ahead and pass back from Cris here. Ponder. Okay, there's Bowmaster's not too bad here.
Yeah, Bowmaster's good. Twitch chat brought up a great point. I wonder if Dustin realized the Urborg was in play and had that hole lined up when he drew the Force so well.
Oh, that is a very good point. I hadn't even thought about that. I completely forgot about the Urborg. Yeah. There's also a spot where, like, if you main phase the it'd be pretty funny if you main phase the opposition agent and Dustin forgets about forgets that he can use his own lands with the Urborg and just fires up the Wasteland of the Urborg.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I'm also now realizing the Urborg opposition agent combo that this deck presents.
Oh yeah. And there's 4 Urborgs, isn't there? I think there's 4. There's 2. Yeah. Okay, only 2.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty good.
As it looks like we missed the trigger potentially on the Amass.
Oh, from
it might be a thing where it was said. Yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing that's happening here. Sometimes when we make mistakes, the game gets rough. You cannot start slip-upping at those points. You have to get every little card advantage, every little point. So we're gonna see 3 mana.
Cris is definitely not dead this game. Cris has, well, I don't know, but Cris does have kind of a lot of bangers in his deck to be able to draw towards. And, Bowmaster's now off the table, but could maybe have a 4-drop, potentially find a land. Looks like no Karn here. And, I wasn't sure if the Plague Engineer was going to come in, but given the fact that Cris has 4 copies, oh, you're Bowmaster? Mine now, baby.
Bam. Shoot you.
See you.
I love it.
So we're going to go ahead and put Cris to 19. We'll get in there with the Plague Engineer. And we are amassing a clock here for Dustin. And Cris is really going to have to find a big payoff here. Really need something like a Karn the Great Creator to get out of this.
Yeah, Karn into Bridge is probably like our best thing. As Murktide Regent, that is, yeah, you see Cris there, like, even Murktide and Karn might not be enough now because we need a sort of a turn to develop everything, unless I guess the last card in our hand is also Ancient Tomb, in which case we have exactly enough mana.
Yeah, or City Traders, but we'll have to see what Cris has. Yeah, that whole sequence where first, so Cris, just going back to that one turn, it's like Cris can main phase the opposition agent, but then if Dustin remembers the Urborg, going to be able to tap the land for mana anyways. And I think that at the end of the day, I think what Cris did made sense because you're trying to bait Dustin into sacrificing a land. Because if you main phase it and Dustin knows about the Urborg, then it's like, he just taps the land for black. So,
yeah, I think Cris is taking his last draw step here as we just got chunked for 12 damage, putting us down to 3 with 2 Ancient Tombs in play. And we're going to send the hand. Congratulations to Dustin. Moving on to our finals. We actually have the other match already finished. So I believe we're going to just show that real quick here about who we're going to play in the finals. And then we're going to show it to y'all in just a couple minutes. So let's pull up that match for us real quick here on the slide. That's right. So Chris Smith here Chris Smith here lost on the left here to Dustin, and Win won with Golgari Control. And so we're going to have Dimir Death Shadow versus Golgari Control in the finals of our Legacy 5K. We're going to have that in just 1 minute. So click that follow button. We're going to quickly run an ad, get those players set up, and we'll be right back here.